The US Vice-President JD Vance has raised hopes of a UK-US trade deal. Mr. Vance said that the Trump administration wanted an agreement that would serve the best interest of both countries. It's understood that any deal would focus on more than just lowering tariffs and cover elements of trade in both goods and services. Well, UK government sources have suggested that recent talks with the US on a trade deal have been making good progress. Here's our North America correspondent, David Willis.
This was JD Vance's first major interview with a European outlet since he took office, and in it he made clear the Trump administration's affection for the UK government and its royal family in particular, and he made clear that when it came to negotiating trade deals, the United Kingdom was at the front of the queue. We're working very hard with Keir Starmer's government, he said, adding that there was, as he put it, a good chance that the world's largest economy, the United States, will reach a trade agreement with the UK that is in the best interest of both countries. And despite declaring that he loves Europe, JD Vance made clear that he holds Europe's leaders, most of them anyway, in considerably less affection, and that with the exception of Britain, Poland and France, a lack of military spending had threatened to leave European nations, as he put it, security vassals.
David Willis there. Well, Sarah Jones is Minister for Industry. She gave this update earlier on how steel and coal has been getting to Scunthorpe to keep the blast furnaces going. She was also commenting on the potential trade deal between the United States and the UK.
Well, we've got officials on the ground. We've got new leadership in British Steel itself. We've paid the bills for the shipments, so we are in a steady state now, and I'm reassured about that. And people can be reassured that that steady state is there. Of course, what we need to look to the future, we need to work out what we're going to do in terms of steel production in the UK going forward. Now, there is huge positive news in that the demand for steel is increasing, whether it's the 1.5 million homes that we'll be building, whether it's Heathrow expansion, the new theme park in Bedford, whether it's clean energy. All of these new infrastructures need steel. So we need to make sure through our £2.5 billion fund for steel, which we had in the manifesto, that we are delivering the right conditions for the steel industry in the UK to thrive. It's halved over the last 10 years. Our steel production in this country has halved. We have to reverse that decline, and I'm positive that we'll be able to do that. Well, that's, I'm not going to comment on those conversations that my colleagues are having. Of course, Johnny Reynolds, the business secretary, has had lots of conversations with his counterparts. Our officials are having lots of conversations as well. And I'm hoping for a good outcome, as we all are, but I don't want to preempt that. And, it's positive, of course, that the Vice President is suggesting that we're close to a deal, but those conversations will continue until we get there.
So Sarah Jones there, Minister for Industry, talking about the potential trade deal between the US and the UK, but also talking about Scunthorpe, and we will be coming back to that a little bit later in the programme because we're hopeful that raw materials will be coming to the plant. But let's just pick up on what JD Vance, the US in the United States, was talking about when it comes to potential trade deals. We can cross over to speak to Antonin Finkelnberg, Director General of the Federation for German Wholesale and Foreign Trade. JD Vance saying that a reciprocal relationship between the US and the UK gave Britain a more advantageous position than other European countries. He said that the US loves the Germans, but you are heavily dependent on exporting to the US. But you've been really tough on a lot of American businesses. So is that a fair assessment from JD Vance?
No, I don't think it's a fair assessment. I think there's a trade surplus from Germany and from Europe to the United States on normal exports, but there's also a big surplus from service companies, especially digital companies from the US going to Europe and to Germany. So if you put those two things on the table, the balance is a lot more closer to being normal than what is being said.
We know that, of course, the UK had 10% tariffs put on them, whereas the European Union had 20% tariffs. Obviously, the UK not part of the EU anymore. Do you think that Brexit was good for the UK in this particular circumstance?
I don't think so, because the EU is back to the 10% as well, and the EU is a much larger market, so normally that would give us a better negotiation position. However, you cannot dismiss the historical connection between England and the United States, and the UK and the United States. Therefore, I think it's a lot of different reasons playing in that current state of negotiations.
Do you wonder whether Ursula von der Leyen came in too strong at the very beginning of this, saying that they will be putting reciprocal tariffs on the United States? There was a lot of fighting talk coming from the European Union. Was that the wrong way to go about dealing with someone like Donald Trump?
I don't think so. In this case, I think the response by the EU, by Mrs. von der Leyen, was quite right, actually. We never got the impression that the United States actually wanted to really negotiate, and therefore we needed a hard answer and a strong stance to actually get them to open the negotiations. And now I think we're seeing a more measured response. The EU is pulling back its tariffs, a threat of additional tariffs for the moment. So we have an open window of talking to each other, so that's a good thing in our opinion.
OK, great to get your assessment. Antonin Finkelberg from the Federation for German Wholesale and Foreign Trade. Thank you.